Hello and welcome to Monkeys, Apes, and Man. The first topic we're going to tackle in this course is taxonomy. So this section is a part of a larger PowerPoint presentation that will be in your class resources or your course resources, sorry. But I'm going to break up this PowerPoint presentation into some more digestible nuggets for you guys. So we are starting with just an overview of what taxonomy is. So depending on where you are in your school career, you may or may not remember that 10th grade biology course where we did kingdoms, phylums, all of that stuff where you kind of sorted biological plants and animals into different sort of kingdoms and phylums and that sort of evolutionary tree. So that's where we're going to start on. And this is really just a base. So while you won't be necessarily responsible for all of these minute details, it is really, really critically important that we start here and build from here so that you guys understand our primate classifications. Okay, so we are in this course going to study primates. That's what you guys signed up for, and specifically extant primates. So extant is the opposite of extinct, meaning that these are primates still alive today. So these include some of our prosimians. So if you've been to the Buffalo Zoo, you may have seen those ring-tailed lemurs. Some monkeys, apes, like our little chimpanzee friend here, and of course humans. Now, when we do get into humans, we will talk a little bit about the fossil record of human evolution because that's important for us to know where we came from. But for the most part, all of the primates we're going to talk about in this course are alive today. So this is what we're here for, taxonomy. What the heck are primates? So taxonomy is just how we categorize living things. So in this course section or this module, you should see a taxonomy chart. I do suggest if you have the capability to print that out, go ahead and do so. It's going to be really handy as we go through our primate order for you guys to understand how to use that chart. That chart is going to be your be-all, end-all. When we have our taxonomy exam, you are going to be required to really be able to utilize that chart and understand how it functions. So taxonomy is how we categorize living things. And we distinguish our primates by characteristics. And that's within the primate order. So when we talk about taxonomy, we're talking about morphological characteristics. What the heck does morphological mean? Morphological are physical characteristics. Okay, so while we might have some behavioral characteristics, which the vast majority of this class will talk about, taxonomy is morphological or physical characteristics that allow scientists to put primates into specific categories or classes. So we're going to start with our prosimians. Our prosimians are literally, that means pre-monkey. So they're sort of the first stop on our evolutionary journey from mammals to humans. Prosimians, their Latin word is strepsirrhini. That's why that taxonomy chart is so important. Do I expect you guys to remember every single Latin name for every single monkey? No, that would be crazy. Look at all of those Latin names: strepsirrhini, haplorhini, platyrrhini, calothricid, cercolopithecoids. That's too much. That's why that taxonomy chart is so important, because if you know how to read it, you can just reference it. You do not need to memorize any of this information. So visually, how do we classify our animals and our plants? So this is one way. You guys may have seen a tree of life. So that big trunk at the bottom is sort of where every living organism comes from, right down to our singled cells. And you can see as that tree grows, it branches out into smaller and more specific categories, all the way up to our vertebrates. So vertebrates are what we all are. All of our mammals are vertebrates. So you, me, the dog, the cat, and all of our primate friends. Okay? And we categorize these branches based on traits we think we observe. Now, there is a little thing there that says, beware of anthropomorphism. So, or anthropocentrism. So, it's the concept that humans may regard themselves as central and most significant entities in the universe. And so this is really important when we're studying animals. We do tend to try to give them human characteristics. So that's something because we are so, we regard ourselves much higher than other animals. So we often tend to see ourselves in those that we study. So it is important that especially as we get into our behavior, we are aware of this and we don't anthropomorphize the animals that we're studying. All right, here you'll see there are 5 kingdoms. Okay, so our kingdoms are our plants, our fungi, our animal, our protozoa, and our minera. So minera are like our bacteria, our protozoa are like green algae, red algae, molds. We have obviously our plants. So if you guys have any house plants or plants in your garden, we have our fungi, which are our mushrooms and molds. And then of course Animalia, which is the kingdom that all of our primates fit into, and all of our animals are going to be part of the Animalia kingdom. So the next stop on our classification is our phylums. So within our kingdom of animals, or Animalia, we have several phylums. And all of our primates fit into the vertebra. So the vertebra, we all have a backbone, right? So some other characteristics that we all share, in addition to those vertebral columns, are we have paired kidneys, we have hearts and aorta, we have 4 limbs, we are gestated in either an amniotic sac or a shell with a yolk. So an amnion is a membrane that surrounds the amniotic sac and protects the embryo. Okay, so for mammals, we gestate in utero or in the uterus, and we also have our reptiles and birds that will lay eggs. So there's all of our vertebrae are going to do one of those 2 things. They're either going to gestate in utero or they're going to lay eggs. And our next stop after our phylum, so again, we're all in the kingdom Animalia, we're all in the subphylum of vertebrae, and now we have a class, right? Because we're not amphibians, we're not snakes, we're not birds, we are mammals. So all of our primates are going to be in the class of Mammalia. So again, this is just a general overview of how we got from those single-cell organisms to where we are now. So again, this is a transitional. We are moving, again, up that sort of tree of life and becoming more and more specific. Okay, so you can see here are some really specifics about the class Mammalia. You guys are not going to necessarily be responsible for knowing all of these, but just so that you understand that these are all really important things that make us different from the rest of the animals in the kingdom Animalia. So on this slide you can see I've sort of broken out some of the key things that make mammals mammals. So let's talk about those. So what features distinguish mammals? Okay, we all have hair made of keratin. We all have active metabolisms. We're endothermic, which means that we can regulate our body temperature. Hair and fat for insulation. We have a closed circulatory system with a 4-chambered heart. We have a respiratory system, right? We don't have gills, connected to a circulatory system. So those 2 things are connected. We have a diaphragm. That's that powerful muscle that is right below your lungs that's used to enhance respiration or breathing. We share reproductive characteristics. So we have an amniote egg without a shell, retained in a uterus. What does that mean? We gestate our babies inside the uterus. Viviparity, I'm going to say I totally blanked on that one. So let's move on to lactation. Lactation means we're mammals, right? We lactate, we breastfeed. Cephalization. Cephalization, go ahead and write that word down. That's a fancy word to talk about the brain. And that word will come up a lot, cephalization. So what the heck does that mean? We have bigger brains, right? We have big brains, especially our primates. Our body to brain size ratio is large. We have big, big brains. Cephalization is definitely one of these ones you should write down. Large brains, again, that's key to human evolution. And we have complex social behaviors, including parental care. All right, so one thing we're going to learn in science, and this slide represents that, is that there's never any 100% fact that doesn't have an outlier, right? So we can say that mammals do all of those things from the slide before, but what we're going to find in nature is that you always are going to see an outlier. So things like our friend the platypus, our marsupials, right? They're all still mammals, right? They are part of the kingdom Animalia, the subphylum Vertebrae. For the most part, they adhere to all of our other mammal characteristics, except for they have some weird quirks, right? So we know, like our platypus there, he lays an egg. That's so weird, but he's a mammal. Our marsupials, again, they do some things that are, they birth their babies before they're fully mature, and then they sort of hang out in a pouch to continue their amniotic development. So again, while all of our mammals will share similar characteristics, sometimes we have outliers. All right, now that we've done that fast and quick sort of overview of classification, we are really going to focus in this class on the order of primates. So all of the previous slides were just kind of getting us there. How did we get from those single-celled organisms into primates? So for the rest of the course, we're focusing on the order. So kingdom, phylum, class, order. Okay, so we are in the order primates. So in this class, we're going to focus on what the heck is a primate, and we're going to learn about all of the diversity within the primate order. As I mentioned, the primate order has a lot of diversities. So you see that little number in the corner, 200 to 300 species of primates living today. And that number is flexible and changing. We're always finding new primates. So that guy front and center right under the word diversity, that is a little marmoset. So we have marmosets as small as very, very little mice, okay? And then we have that weird eye in the bottom corner, that bottom right-hand corner. We have our gorilla. We have our our spider monkey up in the other corner. There's so much diversity in the primate order. And again, there's parts of the world that we just haven't been able to penetrate to study. So areas of Asia, Korea, the different areas of China that we just haven't been able to get into, areas of the Amazon, right? Some of those primates are very, very small. So we just haven't maybe seen all of the options that are out there and all of the diversity. But you can see from this photo that it is a great deal of diversity. As I mentioned, size is another way that primates are diverse. You see that little marmoset, right? That's just sitting right inside that researcher's hand. That's a tiny, tiny little primate. All the way up to our silverback gorillas, who are going to be the largest primate. Up to 600 pounds those big silverbacks can get. So again, the diversity of size amongst our primates is tremendous. So we've talked about the diversity. We've seen those photos with all of the variations, but are there trends? So this is where it's really important. This is what we talk about when we're classifying these animals, are the trends. So as we've noticed, there's always going to be somebody or an animal that doesn't quite fit all of the check marks. But what we're doing is we're classifying these animals based on certain physiological or morphological trends that we see. So trends for the primate order. So everybody in the primate order is going to, for the most part, have these trends, right? So we're going to see motor adaptations. What the heck does that mean? So motor is how they move. That's going to adapt, right? So our little prosimians or our pre-primates are going to look a lot like maybe a cat or a dog and how they move, all the way up to humans, right? That bipedal, that walking on 2 feet. And we're going to adapt the way we move based on our environment. Again, there's a large size variation across the entire taxa, but we're going to be looking for a trend towards pentadactylism, right? That's 5 digits on hands and feet. We're going to have mobile limbs, right? So again, this is a trend. Our little prosimians, their limbs are going to function more like a cat or a dog, where they move forward and backwards, and we're going to trend towards a more mobile limb. So humans and apes, again, we can move our arms and legs 360 kind of degrees in that ball and socket joint. We have very flexible shoulders and hip joints. We're going to see a trend towards nails instead of claws. So as we move, again, from our prosimians through to our humans, we're going to sort of lose those claws and see nails. We have grasping digits with tactile pads and fingerprints. So we're able to grasp and hold. Again, think of our hands in relation to your cat's. We have a trend towards an erect posture and extensive head rotation. So again, being upright and being able to move our head all around so that we can see our environment. We have rapid and precise muscle control, and that helps us grab things quickly. If we're a little insect eater, it helps us reach out and grab that bug and eat it. We have an opposable hallus, or big toe, and thumb. So humans don't really use that opposable hallus, but you can see this happening in many of our arboreal or tree-living primates, where they also have that opposable toe, big toe, and that thumb, and that gives us that pincer grip, right? That's an important grip for us to be able to manipulate our environment. We have prehensile hands and feet. So if you're looking at your hands and you sort of, let's straighten our fingers and then let's move our palm, right? So we're going to close our palm. And that motion of closing your palm is what we mean by prehensile. So if you were to wrap your palm, say, around a big stick or pole, that's prehensile. So some of our primates also have prehensile tails, but that's not necessarily a trend. And then, of course, we have well-developed clavicles or collarbones. So as we move towards a more upright posture, those clavicle or collarbones are important. They help move our chest, right? So that it's not a big barrel shape like our four-legged friends, but it's more of an oval shape, right? It allows us to sit upright and pull our chests up. And we also see sensory adaptations, right? The enlargement of eyes. Our eyes as primates are much bigger in our skulls than other animals. We have color vision, and this is important, right? It allows us to see our prey and our predators much better. We have binocular vision. So this is hugely important when you're looking at the face of a primate. They have 2 eyes that are facing forward, right? Not on either side of their head, but facing forward. And you can see in this little image why that's important, okay? It gives us a larger field of perception, of depth perception, but it also, again, that 3D, so a larger field of vision, and that 3D vision allows us for great depth perception, which helps us when we're both hunting. So if we're hunting insects or we are hunting, our apes will hunt other smaller mammals. It gives us depth perception, and it also helps us as prey to escape our predators. So that's that stereoscopic vision with those forward-facing eyes, depth perception, and accurate distance estimation. Those are huge. All of our primates are going to have those beautiful forward-facing eyes. Okay, on this slide, you're going to see some talk about some cranial adaptations. Now remember, these are trends. When we start talking about our prosimians or our strepsirrhini, they will not have all of these adaptations just yet. But you can see as a continuum, right? Down that branch in that tree of life that we trend towards these cranial adaptations. So we have less of a focus on olfaction. Olfaction is your sense of smell. So I would also write down this term olfaction. You're going to see that pop up again multiple times throughout the entire course. So olfaction means smell. You're going to see the snout start to be reduced. So again, instead of that long snout, you're going to see that sort of reduce into just smaller noses because we don't rely on our sense of smell. Dental characteristics. Now, there is an entire science behind dental characteristics. We don't dive too deeply into it in this course, but just understand that the number of canine incisors, molars, premolars, all have impact in terms of our classification and our characteristics. And in most groups, we're going to have between 32 and 36 adult teeth. And here's a great example of those teeth. So you can see this chimpanzee here on the right. Their teeth are very similar to ours as humans, right? They are sort of generalized. So humans and chimpanzees have more generalized teeth because our diet is more generalized, right? We eat a little bit of everything. We're omnivorous and we're opportunistic in what we can eat. Our gorilla over here, you can see, has these large canine teeth, which might make you think they're a meat eater, but they actually eat a lot of bamboo and a lot of leaves, and they use those teeth to help strip those leaves and those sort of fibrous outside pieces of the bamboo so they can get to the soft, pithy center. So again, you're going to see a trend towards a more generalized tooth structure in our primates. And while most of what we're going to talk about in taxonomy, the vast majority is morphological or physical, it is important to note that there are some behavioral tendencies as well in primates. So primates have sort of a life history characteristics that they share. Delayed maturation. So what the heck does that mean? It means as we move through our primate order, especially up to humans, the age at which we are considered mature is much later than some of our early primates, prosimians, or other mammals. And we have an increased infant dependency, meaning our infants are really dependent for a much longer period of time. We have long gestations or pregnancies. We also have a trend towards longer lifespans. So again, our little prosimians might not have very long lifespans, but our chimpanzees, our humans, again, are going to have much longer lifespans. This also correlates with a lower reproductive rate, right? If you live a longer period of time, you have a longer period of time to reproduce, and you invest more time into each infant or child in their development. We also have large, complex brains. We tend to be gregarious, right? So we trend towards many of our prosimians are still going to live very solitary, but humans, apes, many monkeys are gregarious, which means that we live permanently in social groups. We also have a trend towards male and female social associations. So again, groups that combine male and females outside of just mating. We tend to have singleton births as primates. Now, obviously, sometimes we see twins, sometimes we see triplets, but for the most part, we bear one infant at a time. Many of our primates are arboreal or arboreal, which means they live in the trees. So how I always remember this is there's a holiday called Arbor Day that's all about planting trees, which means we're arboreal and for the most part live in the trees. We are diurnal. Again, that's the trend, moving towards being active during the daytime. So that's what diurnal means, active during the day. And we practice grooming. So grooming is a huge social function. It's the glue that holds a group together. It's both practical, obviously we want to stay clean, and it also serves an important social function. All right, so primates. Let's start to recap here a little bit. How many species? Between 200 and 300. There are academic debates and hybrids. We are going to rely on DNA sequencing to help sort out some of that. New primate species are found every few years. There's areas that are difficult to get to, like swampy areas, right? And the work is not easy. Um, Monkeys are cute, right? And so the work to get to them is not cute, or not cute, is not easy. Um, and sort of the primate's place in culture, depending on where you're studying them, can be troublesome. Many cultures eat monkeys, and there's a bushmeat trade. And many cultures capture primates to keep as pets. So while we're continuing to look for monkeys and primates, there are factors that are making it difficult to find them, and we may be losing species. This slide is an example of why it's challenging for researchers. One, we've got our bushmeat trade. So not only do many local cultures eat primates, they are, again, just another animal in the forest that they can utilize. There are many, many cultures that revere parts of animals. So we have many sort of Asian cultures that will look for things like gorilla hands or gorilla bones and things like that that they might use in traditional medicine or as tokens of status. And then, of course, primates are cute. So you see this little orangutan sitting here in a sweatsuit, and some Crocs. Now we might look at that and say, "Oh, isn't that orangutan cute?" But again, that is a young orangutan. You can see by his very pale face that he is a juvenile. His mother was probably killed as he was poached so that he could go into this facility here to take photos with tourists. So we have a large problem with both the bushmeat and the pet trade, making a huge impact on how our primates live and how we're able to study them in the wild. So this slide says it all. Non-human and undomesticated animals are not meant to be pets. The exotic pet trade is a huge challenge. Primates are not domesticated. They are not meant to be pets, and they make terrible pets. Okay? Many primates can share the same diseases as us, so they can spread disease and sickness. Primates also tend to be very social, so it's really, really hard to keep them stimulated. So if you go to a zoo or a wildlife refuge, you can see that the keepers there spend a great deal of time on what's called enrichment behavior, doing things that keep them motivated, keep them socialized, keep their brains active. Many pet owners just do not have the time or capacity to invest into everything that's needed to keep a primate as a pet. They are also tremendously strong and prone to violent outbreaks. So if you've ever had the chance to study, if you ever do have the chance to study or even look at primates in the wild, there are skirmishes all of the time. And we will have some videos later on in the course where we show that. They don't have another primate in the house to have a skirmish with, so they're going to skirmish with you. They have teeth, they have claws. Well, we're trending more towards nails. They have teeth, they have nails, and they're strong. Even our little monkeys are strong, but think about an ape and how strong they are. So that's why many of these primates, once they reach maturity, are abandoned. They make terrible pets. So we also have, obviously, the problem with the bushmeat trade, but we also have a problem with trophy hunting. So trophy hunting is sort of a Western construct. The great white conqueror who has moved into the jungles and hunts down these ferocious beasts so they can take them home as trophies. This is a huge problem. We still see illegal trophy hunting today, and I think it's an interesting topic for a discussion. So our first discussion topic for taxonomy will be on trophy hunting. I'll have some prompts for you in that discussion section, but basically I want to hear your thoughts on trophy hunting. So this slide is going to seem a little daunting. That is why that taxonomy chart that you guys have in your course resources, you should also see it as a part of this module, is so critical for you to have. Definitely, if you have the capacity, print that out so you can reference that. Because again, we're going to be talking about how we classify all of these primates that we're going to be talking about in this whole section. So you guys do not want to have to memorize any of this. I don't expect you to memorize all of these Latin names. That would be crazy. That would be way too hard. I don't have them memorized. That's why the chart is important, and it's so critical that you guys understand how to read it so that you can utilize that as a tool if you're asked a question, which you most certainly will be on the taxonomy exam. Okay? So definitely utilize that. Let's talk about how to read that chart now. So go ahead and grab that, and we're going to look at how we classify the spider monkey. So you're going to see that chart sort of divided into a bunch of different columns, starting with your suborder and ending in your common name. Okay, so let's go ahead, and the first thing we're going to see here is that we're going to be identifying the Outliers jeffreyi, which is a species of spider monkey. Everybody in this is the order Primates, so you don't see that listed. The first column you see should say suborder. So we're going to look for our Haplorini. Okay, go ahead in that suborder column and follow it to Haplorini. So everything below the Haplorini are in that classification. So don't look above that because those are all Strepsirrhines. Find those Haplorini. Okay. Now we're going to move over to our infraorder. Okay. So those you'll find a few different options. We're looking for our Platyrrhini. Okay. So move over to the Platyrrhini. So again, everything below Platyrrhini is where we're looking at. Now move over to your superfamily. So again, if I'm moving too fast, just pause me here. So we found our suborder Haplorini, our infraorder Platyrrhini. Now we're moving over to the next column of superfamily, and that should be Seboideae. Okay, are you guys able to find that? Now, the next thing that we're going to do is under Seboideae, we're going to look for our family, which is Cebidae. Okay, has everybody found Cebidae? Great. Now, after Cebidae, we're looking for our subfamily, and that's Attilidae. Attilidae, sorry. So this is where it starts to get confusing. Your subfamily or your superfamilies are Oideae, and your families are Idae, and your subfamilies are Inae. So we're looking for Attilidae, okay? Attilidae under subfamily. Okay, everybody's found that. Now we're going to move over to genus, which is Attilies. And our species, which you don't see there because we've just kind of skipped that and gone to the common name. But that's where we find our Joffreyi. So all of our spider monkeys are going to, that's sort of a generalized. There's a few different subspecies. So you guys should have been able to move through that chart. If you weren't able to do that, I definitely suggest going back and trying again. You're going to need to do that. It's going to be absolutely critical for your taxonomy exam for you to be able to read the chart. So again, how we got to spider monkey. We looked for our suborder Haplorini, our infraorder Platyrrhini, our superfamily Seboideae, our family Cebidae, our subfamily Attilidae, and our genus Antilles. Okay, and then next to that you should see the common name for spider monkey. Okay, so in this class we're going to be categorizing six different main primate groups, starting with our lemurs, which are going to be at the top of that taxonomy chart, going all the way down to our apes, which are the bottom of that taxonomy chart. All right, and then here's a breakout of those six different main primate groups. You can see I have the part of those words rhini highlighted in red. When we get into the next lecture, you'll see why the rhini is so critically important. And you will be able to tell the difference of primates just from their rhinis. So if anybody has a guess of what that is, definitely pop that into the discussion somewhere. Okay, so we're going to start with our prosimians again at the top of that taxonomy chart, and we're going to move all the way down to our hominoids. Hominoids are not just humans, it includes our apes as well. All right, so that's the end of lecture 1, and I will see you guys back here for lecture 2.